Imagine waking up exhausted after a terrible night's sleep all because your pillow was a little too low, the mattress felt slightly too firm, or the air conditioner was colder than usual. One small inconvenience, and by morning, you are already tired and complaining. Today, we grumble about the tiniest problems in our bedrooms because a soft, comfortable bed feels like something we have always had. But now, rewind the clock hundreds of thousands of years. There were no bedrooms, no spring mattresses, and certainly no fluffy blankets waiting at the end of the day. And yet, our ancestors survived for millions of years without any of those things. That almost sounds impossible. But this is only the beginning of the story, because just when you think sleeping on the bare ground must have been the worst part, things become much more dangerous. Our ancestors had no sealed rooms to protect them from freezing wind, but they still needed enough sleep to hunt, travel, and survive the following day. And that mattered more than you might think, because sleep is not simply a time when the body switches off. It is when muscles recover, energy returns, and the brain prepares for tomorrow's challenges. A well-rested hunter could run faster, react sooner, and throw a spear more accurately. Without enough sleep, those abilities could quickly begin to fade. Today, slower reactions might cause you to spill a drink or miss the school bus. In prehistoric times, being slightly too slow could cost you your life. A tired human was weaker, less alert, and much easier for a predator to catch. Frightening as that sounds, it was part of everyday life for our ancestors. And that raises an important question. Did they simply lie down on the ground, or had they already begun creating the world's first beds? How could anyone close their eyes when a hungry predator might appear from the darkness at any moment? Think about it. When you fall into a deep sleep, you become almost completely unaware of what is happening around you. That creates one of life's strangest puzzles. Sleep is when we are most vulnerable, yet it is also something we cannot survive without. Stay awake too long, and the body becomes too weak to function. Sleep too deeply, and you may not notice danger until it is already beside you. It sounds like a problem with no solution. But here is where the story becomes fascinating. Ancient humans developed clever survival strategies that transformed the ground beneath them into a safer place to sleep. They did not simply rest. They slept in ways that allowed them to recover while remaining prepared for danger. And one of their greatest secrets remained buried underground for hundreds of thousands of years. To learn more about how early humans, armed with little more than simple spears, stones, and wooden clubs, survived encounters with some of the fiercest predators on Earth, our team has created a separate video on that subject. You can click in the upper left corner to watch it. Here is the surprising part. Humans may have been designing their own beds as far back as 200,000 years ago. For a long time, many people assumed that beds appeared only after humans began building permanent homes. Then archaeologists discovered evidence that told a very different story. Inside Border Cave in South Africa, scientists found traces of some of the oldest known human bedding in the world. What makes this discovery especially remarkable is how early it appeared in the history of our species. Even then, our ancestors were not simply collapsing wherever they happened to feel tired. They were already thinking about comfort, cleanliness, and safety. Building a sleeping place required planning, observation, and an understanding of the surrounding environment. It showed that early humans were not only intelligent but also surprisingly thoughtful about caring for themselves. But once we know that they had beds, another question immediately appears. What could they possibly have used as a mattress? Their beds were not stuffed with cotton or filled with springs. Instead, they were made from thick, carefully arranged layers of soft grass, almost like enormous mattresses built by nature. But they did not grab just any plants they happened to find. They used a type of grass known scientifically as Panicum maximum, which grew near the entrance of the cave. After gathering it, they placed layer upon layer on the ground and carefully wove the grass together to form a soft sleeping mat. Some of these grass beds may have been around 30 centimeters thick. That was enough to lift the body away from the cold stone floor while trapping warmth inside the bedding. Think about that for a second. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans already understood the basic idea of insulation, even though they had no scientific word for it. But the thick grass was not the bed's greatest secret. Hidden beneath it was something far more unexpected. The real secret of the ancient bed was a strange gray layer underneath it, fireplace ash. Today, most people would look at a pile of ash and see nothing more than waste left behind after a fire. Prehistoric humans saw something useful. Before placing the grass on the cave floor, they spread a thick layer of ash from old fires across the ground. That ash was not useless dirt. It acted like one of the most ingenious health tools available at the time. It helped keep the sleeping area dry and protected the grass from moisture rising through the cave floor. A layer of dull gray powder, seemingly worthless at first glance, quietly helped protect an entire group throughout the night. But wait, the most impressive part is still ahead. Ash could do something else that very few people would expect. Fireplace ash worked like a powerful natural insect repellent. During the day, insects may appear tiny and harmless. At night, however, a few dozen fleas, ticks, lice, or other crawling pests could make peaceful sleep almost impossible. Prehistoric humans had no insect spray, mosquito nets, or modern medicine. So what did they do? Many small insects avoided crawling across fine ash, and those that entered it faced serious trouble. The powder could cling to their bodies and interfere with their ability to retain moisture, eventually dehydrating and killing them. With a layer of ash beneath the bed, ancient humans had a better chance of sleeping without being bitten throughout the night. It was an incredibly simple solution, but also a remarkably effective one. And after dealing with the insects crawling below them, our ancestors turned their attention to the unwanted visitors flying through the air. They even used what we might call herbal perfume to drive mosquitoes away, much like people use scented repellents today. It sounds like a modern household trick, but the idea existed long before perfumes, essential oils, or insect repellent candles. On top of the grass bedding, ancient humans placed aromatic leaves with strong, distinctive scents, including plants associated with camphor-like smells. As the leaves released their fragrance, the atmosphere inside the cave changed. The smell helped discourage mosquitoes and other insects from approaching the sleeping area. This tells us something important about the way early humans understood plants. They carefully observed the natural world, remembered which leaves had useful effects, and turned ordinary vegetation into a protective tool for the whole group. But eventually, another problem appeared. After days of use, the grass bed would become dirty, dusty, and filled with pests. So how did they clean it? Their cleaning system was surprisingly organized and efficient. That may sound strange when we are talking about people living in caves, but their solution was incredibly clever. When the old grass bedding became dirty, they burned it right where it lay. The flames destroyed insects, waste, and harmful organisms hiding inside the dried plants. Once the fire died out, it left behind a fresh layer of ash. Then the group placed new grass directly on top and began the cycle again. The old bed became part of the protection for the new one, so almost nothing went to waste. This shows that our ancestors were doing far more than simply surviving from one day to the next. They had created a practical system for keeping their sleeping space cleaner, drier, and safer. But that is only the story of the bed itself. The next part is even more fascinating, because human sleep did not merely change the places where our ancestors lived. Over time, it may also have helped change the human brain. Did you know that humans sleep less than any of our ape and monkey relatives? That may sound strange, especially since many of us feel as though we spend plenty of time in bed. But place humans beside chimpanzees, baboons, and other primates, and the difference becomes fascinating. Chimpanzees sleep for roughly 9.5 hours a day, while humans average closer to 7. We sleep less, but that does not necessarily mean we sleep worse. In fact, shorter sleep may have been one of the most important upgrades in human evolution. Our ancestors traded some of their sleeping time for more hours to create, communicate, and explore. Instead of spending nearly half the day asleep in the trees, they could sit beside the fire, shape stones, build spears, study the sky, and experiment with new ideas. Those extra waking hours may have helped human culture and intelligence grow. But wait, if humans began sleeping less, why did they not spend every day completely exhausted? The answer may be that human sleep became shorter, but more concentrated. Think of it like a fast-charging phone. It does not need to remain plugged in all day to recharge its battery. It can gain a great deal of energy in a shorter amount of time. Human sleep works a little like that. Our brains devote an unusually large share of sleep to REM, the stage connected with vivid dreaming, memory, and emotional processing. While the body lies still, the brain quietly organizes experiences, strengthens skills, stores memories, and works through fears from the day. Many other animals sleep longer, but their rest is often lighter and more easily interrupted because they must remain alert to danger. Humans, protected by fire, larger groups, and safer sleeping areas, could afford to sleep more deeply in less time. We did not simply become better at staying awake, we became better at making sleep count. But to gain that deeper rest, our ancestors had to make an incredibly bold move. They had to leave the trees. Our ancestors once made one of the greatest moves in human history, from the branches above to the ground below. It sounds simple, but for a relatively small creature surrounded by hungry predators, sleeping on the ground was a dangerous decision. Long before grass beds appeared, our distant ancestors likely slept in nest-like platforms built high in trees. Up there, many predators had trouble reaching them, while the forest floor remained filled with threats. But the human body was changing. As our ancestors grew larger and became better at walking on two legs, climbing into trees every night became slower, harder, and less secure. One wrong step in the darkness could end badly. Moving to the ground, however, offered a major advantage. Larger groups could gather in one place and protect one another. Instead of sleeping alone on separate branches, everyone could rest together. From that moment on, human sleep was no longer only a private activity. It became a responsibility shared by the entire group. For ancient humans, bedtime was a team activity. Today, you can close your bedroom door, switch off the light, hug a pillow, and sleep by yourself. In the prehistoric world, sleeping alone in the wilderness would have been an extremely risky idea. No one wanted to be the only person snoring while suspicious leaves rustled nearby. Members of the group likely rested close together around the fire. Older adults, children, hunters, and gatherers all shared warmth and protection. Their combined body heat helped them survive cold nights when there were no heaters or thick blankets. But this arrangement provided more than warmth. Lying near other people meant hearing familiar breathing, feeling small movements, and knowing that you were not alone. Those signals may have helped the brain relax. Still, sleeping in a group was not enough by itself. The entire community could not afford to fall into deep sleep at exactly the same time. Ancient groups may have relied on a kind of rotating night watch, making sure that at least one pair of eyes remained open. Picture a circle of people resting around a fire. Some are sleeping deeply. Others are only dozing. One person sits upright, holding a wooden club and staring into the darkness. While much of the group rested, a few people could remain awake to tend the fire and listen for unusual sounds. There were no alarms, security cameras, or motion sensors. Their entire safety system depended on sharp ears, watchful eyes, and survival instincts. A branch snapping nearby, heavy breathing beyond the cave entrance, or a dark shape passing through the firelight could mean that everyone needed to wake up immediately. This arrangement kept the group from becoming completely unaware of its surroundings. But here is the interesting part. They may not always have needed a strict schedule. Human bodies already followed different sleeping patterns, creating a surprisingly natural watch system. The secret may have been the natural difference between the sleeping schedules of younger and older people. It is a scene that still feels familiar today. Teenagers often prefer staying up late, while older adults tend to wake early. That difference may be connected to a very old survival advantage. In the evening, older members of the group might begin feeling tired while younger people remained awake beside the fire. They could talk quietly, repair tools, watch the shadows, or keep the flames alive. Then, just as the younger members finally began falling asleep, the older members might start waking for the morning. As a result, someone in the group was almost always more alert than everyone else. These overlapping schedules formed a natural circle of protection throughout the night. Long before alarm clocks and official guard shifts, differences in age may have helped communities watch over themselves. But that system would have been far less effective without one crucial guardian: fire. Fire was humanity's most loyal nighttime protector. During the day, it cooked food. After sunset, it became something like an invisible wall. Bright flames discouraged many predators from approaching. To us, a campfire may look peaceful and beautiful. To an animal watching from the darkness, it is a strange, glowing, crackling source of heat that moves unpredictably. In other words, fire may have been humanity's first giant keep-away sign. Its smoke could also discourage mosquitoes and reduce some of the dampness around a shelter. Most importantly, the glow of the fire created a powerful sense of safety. Without it, the ground could feel exposed and terrifying. With it, the same patch of earth began to feel like home. Yet even with flames nearby and companions all around, the human brain did not completely lower its guard. It kept one final protection system running in the background. Our brains still have the ability to remain partly alert when we sleep somewhere unfamiliar. Have you ever spent a night in a hotel, at a friend's house, or in a new room and awakened feeling as though you barely slept? That uncomfortable experience is not entirely random. During the first night in a strange place, part of the brain may remain more alert than usual, continuing to monitor unfamiliar sounds. It is almost like a biological security mode left over from ancient times. This response may have helped our ancestors survive as they traveled through unknown forests, caves, and campsites. When a group entered a new shelter, the brain could not immediately assume that everything was safe. It needed time to learn which sounds were harmless and which might signal danger. That may be why the first night of a trip often feels restless. So perhaps it is not only the hotel pillow, although, to be fair, hotel pillows can be pretty strange. It may also be your ancient brain quietly standing guard. Ancient humans did not need alarm clocks. The changing temperature and light of the natural world helped wake them. Today, many of us are dragged out of sleep by a phone blasting a cheerful song that quickly becomes the most annoying sound on Earth. Our ancestors had no ringing alarms. Instead, their bodies followed signals from the environment. The hours just before sunrise are often among the coldest parts of the night. As the temperature shifted and dawn approached, the body could begin moving toward wakefulness. Then the first morning light helped reset the internal clock and prepare everyone for the day ahead. No flashing screen, no snooze button, no request for 5 more minutes. Their biological rhythms followed the movement of the sun and the daily changes around them. Daylight meant activity, darkness meant rest, and sunrise became the largest natural alarm clock in the world. But the place where they slept was not used only at night. During the day, it could transform into something completely different. A grass bed could also become a busy workshop. That may sound funny today, because when someone says they work from bed, we usually imagine a laptop, a phone, and a posture their back will regret later. For ancient humans, however, a grass mat was much more than a sleeping surface. Archaeologists have discovered fragments of stone and animal bone mixed into layers of ancient bedding. This suggests that people sat there while shaping stone tools and working with materials from hunted animals. Picture someone resting on a thick mat of grass, holding a stone and striking it carefully to create a sharp edge. Nearby lie bone fragments, tiny stone flakes, aromatic leaves, and a fire still glowing softly. Traces of red and orange pigments also suggest that these spaces may have been used while preparing or applying body color. The grass bed was not simply a bed. It could serve as a seat, a workshop, a social area, and the center of everyday life. Looking back, we begin to notice something remarkable. Our ancestors had no modern bedrooms, yet they knew how to turn one corner of a cave into a place that felt warm, useful, protected, and familiar. The story of ancient sleep is not only about how humans learned to lie down safely. It is also about how they began creating the feeling we now call home. Sleeping on firm ground may actually have helped our ancestors develop strong, resilient bodies. That sounds backward, doesn't it? Today, all it takes is one night on a slightly firmer mattress, and some people wake up walking like they suddenly turned 90. But ancient humans grew up resting on flatter, firmer, and more natural surfaces. Instead of sinking deeply into an overly soft mattress, their bodies remained stable on layers of grass, animal hides, or carefully prepared earth. These surfaces may have supported the body more evenly and helped keep the spine in a natural position. Their sleeping postures were also shaped by a lifetime of moving, climbing, hunting, and resting close to the ground. Over countless generations, the human body adapted to this way of sleeping. And here is the strange part. What we call modern comfort may not always match the conditions our ancient bodies originally adapted to. Still, even if the ground could be turned into a decent bed, darkness remained a completely different problem. Our fear of the dark may be an ancient survival system that never switched off. Picture a child hesitating before walking down a dark hallway at night. It may seem childish, but the brain is actually performing one of its oldest jobs. For our ancestors, darkness was not simply the absence of light. It was a place where predators, poisonous animals, and other dangers could remain hidden. Fear encouraged people to stay near the safety of the fire instead of wandering alone into the night. Even a faint sound in the bushes could make an entire group fall silent and listen. Some scientists have also suggested that frightening dreams may help the brain practice responding to threats. In a dream, the mind can create dangerous situations without placing the body in real danger. So when darkness makes you nervous, it does not mean your brain is trying to make you weak. It may simply be an ancient security system reminding you to stay alert. Later, humans gained a very special companion to help with that job. Dogs may have become one of humanity's earliest living alarm systems. Long before security cameras, motion sensors, or electronic alarms, people could rely on a dog's ears and nose. By at least 14,000 years ago, dogs were already living closely alongside humans, and they may have slept near camps and settlements. Picture a quiet night beside the fire. The whole group is asleep when one dog suddenly lifts its head. Its ears rise. Its nose tests the air. Long before any person notices a sound, the dog senses that something is approaching. A sudden bark gives everyone precious time to wake up and prepare. It was a remarkable partnership. Humans offered food, warmth, and shelter. Dogs provided warning, protection, and a greater sense of safety. But even with dogs, fire, and an entire group nearby, humans still had to choose their sleeping location carefully. To discover how people eventually formed close relationships with many of the animals we know today, you can watch our separate video on domestication here on the channel. Caves were not merely dark holes in the rock. The right cave could become an incredibly effective sleeping fortress. Today, we often imagine caves as cold, damp, and frightening. But to ancient humans, a well-chosen cave may have felt like a five-star prehistoric hotel. There was no breakfast buffet, of course, but at least the wind was not blowing directly into everyone's face. Caves with narrow entrances were especially useful because they were easier to defend and harder for large predators to enter. A small opening worked like a natural gate. With only a few people watching it, the entire group could control the main entrance. Sleeping areas could be placed farther inside, where they were less exposed to wind and more difficult for animals outside to see. Some groups may also have used thorny branches or other barriers to make an entrance more difficult to cross. A cave was not simply a hollow space. It provided walls, a roof, shelter, and a defensible place to rest. But the landscape was not the only part of nature shaping human sleep. The sky played a role as well. Moonlight may have acted like a natural calendar for ancient sleepers. Today, we check the time on a phone. Our ancestors looked upward. On bright moonlit nights, the world did not disappear completely into darkness. Paths became easier to see, the surrounding land was more visible, and nighttime activity became somewhat safer. People may have stayed awake longer to travel, work, repair tools, hunt, or talk beside the fire. Darker nights were different. Without much moonlight, dangers were harder to detect and movement became riskier. On those nights, resting earlier could conserve energy and reduce unnecessary exposure. Human behavior could shift with the changing brightness of the sky. Think about that for a moment. Long before wall calendars, smartwatches, or sleep tracking apps, people followed an enormous natural schedule hanging above their heads. But nights were not filled only with moonlight, fire, and silence. Sometimes, the sound of another human voice was exactly what helped people fall asleep. Quiet conversation may have worked like a natural sleeping aid for the entire group. You may have felt something similar while listening to family members talking in another room. You do not need to understand every word. Simply knowing that someone familiar is nearby can make everything feel safer. For ancient humans, that feeling would have mattered even more. A few people might sit beside the fire, speaking softly about the day's hunt or discussing where the group would travel the following morning. Others could lie nearby, listening to familiar voices as their bodies gradually relaxed. Those sounds carried a simple message. Everything is still all right, and you are not alone. Familiar voices can make the brain feel safer because they signal the presence of trusted people. In the ancient world, belonging to a group was not merely comforting. It was one of the most important ways to survive. But there is another small part of bedtime we often forget. Where did they put their heads? Humanity's first pillow may have been nothing more than a rolled animal hide. Today, pillows come in every possible shape: high, low, firm, soft, long, curved, and specially designed for neck support. Some people cannot sleep at all unless they have the exact pillow they use every night. Ancient humans did not have furniture stores, so they worked with whatever nature provided. A rolled hide, a bundle of soft grass, a bag of dry leaves, or a raised patch of earth could all support the head. In some places, a smooth stone may have been the best available option. That sounds uncomfortable, but humans have always been remarkably good at adapting. Raising the head kept it away from the cold ground and may have made it more difficult for insects to reach the face. Depending on the position, it could also make breathing feel more comfortable. From those simple bundles of grass and hide came the basic idea behind the pillows we use today. It was a small invention, but a deeply human one. Even while fighting to survive, people still searched for a way to make sleep just a little more comfortable. And once they had fire, bedding, simple pillows, and companions nearby, nighttime became about far more than rest. Ancient humans may have traded some sleep for communication, memory, and culture. This is where the story becomes especially interesting. If survival were their only goal, they could have eaten their evening meal and gone directly to sleep. But humans rarely live that simply. Instead, groups remained together beside the fire, sharing stories and passing knowledge from one generation to the next. One hunter might act out an encounter with an animal using gestures. Someone else could teach children how to recognize tracks. An older member might describe a dangerous river or a place where predators had been seen. During these nighttime conversations, memories were preserved, lessons were shared, relationships grew stronger, and common beliefs began to form. Language and culture may have developed partly through these hours spent awake together, and the habit still feels familiar. People today also stay up late talking, watching videos, exchanging ideas, or telling stories. Our ancestors did it beside a fire. We often do it beside a glowing screen. The setting has changed, but the need remains the same. Humans use stories to understand one another and feel that they belong. The intelligence of ancient humans becomes even more impressive when we remember how few materials they had. There were no factories, luxury blankets, insect sprays, electric heaters, or bedside lamps. What they did have were observant eyes, skilled hands, and minds constantly asking one important question: how can we make tonight safer than last night? They used ash to create cleaner sleeping surfaces, aromatic plants to discourage insects, and fire to protect the group after dark. They slept close together for warmth, selected narrow cave entrances that were easier to defend, relied on dogs for warnings, and adjusted some of their activities according to natural light. Each individual idea may seem simple. Together, however, they formed an extraordinarily intelligent survival system. Ancient humans did not sleep only to remain alive. During sleep, their brains processed memories, emotions, skills, and new experiences. Their creativity laid the foundation for every sleeping technology that followed. The journey from a grass mat to a modern mattress is not simply a history of household objects. It is the story of a vulnerable species learning how to transform darkness into a place of recovery. Today, even when we lie beneath warm blankets on soft mattresses, our brains still carry many of the instincts of cave-dwelling humans. You may sleep inside a locked room with air conditioning, a nightlight, and your favorite pillow. Yet somewhere deep inside, the brain still searches for very ancient signals: warmth, safety, familiar sounds, and the presence of trusted people. That may be why an unfamiliar dark room can make sleep difficult. It may also explain why the sound of rain, a spinning fan, or family members nearby can sometimes feel so calming. Learning how our ancestors slept helps us appreciate the comfort of modern life. The bed you lie in tonight is more than another object in your bedroom. It represents hundreds of thousands of years spent learning how to resist cold, avoid insects, escape predators, protect one another, and transform one tiny corner of a dangerous world into a safe place. So sleep well tonight. You carry within you the legacy of some of the greatest survival experts in human history.